So this here is my workshop. I'm in a garage, actually a 3-car garage, but my workshop here takes up about a 2-car garage worth of space, although there's a lot of optional parts of my workshop that could be removed and it could technically fit in a 1-car garage stall. So I'm going to take you through a walk around and talk about good and bad things that I like with my layout, what I might change in the future and what I changed in the past, what I like better now. First, I want to do a brief walkthrough just to get you a general idea of the layout in here before going into detail of each area, explaining why I picked the current design or things I hate about it. So starting here, this is kind of my main area. This is where I keep most tools and tabletop stuff because this is where I stand all the time. Going over this way, this is where I have my miter saw and some wood storage, mostly because I needed that extra length. Now going back here, I struggled with this area for a long time because I hate using this space. So it ended up working really well for wood storage and just other stuff I want to push out of the way. Over here, this is where I got my table saw and planer because they both require a 4-inch port for a dust collector. So this way I can share it without the dust collector kind of awkwardly being in the way of anything else. Wrapping back around, this is where I have my newer router table. And that about does it. I do need a better place for my joiner. I rarely use that. And just recently, I guess kind of spoiler, I got this radial arm saw. It's a really old Craftsman, and I'm going to be setting this up. I don't know where to put it yet. So let's go into specifics. In my main area here, this is where I stand 90% of the time. If I'm not making cuts on the miter saw or table saw, this is where I am because I have all my tools here, including the drawers here, if you didn't notice that. This is my assembly table, so I like having everything pretty much within arm's reach or at least a short distance walk. Now, one of the first things I added was this French cleat wall. I know French cleats are kind of trendy and people have better options or worse, they think they're better, whatever. Doesn't matter. French cleats are easy, so I added these because it's easy to customize different storage options. I haven't changed this at all because of how well it works, so that's something to keep in mind for your workshop. Something I did change is my workbench and storage like this. I made these new benches that are more of a modular design because each one of these cabinets here, you can design it however you want with drawers and doors and swap it out with each other, and it's a very solid workbench on its own. I do have a video for that, so I'll link that in the description. Back in this corner, you can see I have clamp storage here, which has gone through a few different variations. And I finally settled on just French cleats, like the other wall, for a couple reasons. One, I can design the hangers however I want. Like whatever you want to do, that works fine, and the cleats are still plenty strong for holding that. Also, if I ever want to swap out storage where I'm placing tools or clamps with my other wall, I can always change these. I'm not stuck with one clamp storage area. It's very modular like the rest of my tool storage. One other thing I want to point out is I added a mini split in my garage, which a lot of people, I assume, might think it's overkill. It's somewhat close to the price you would pay for a gas heater, but this way you get air conditioning as well. It's not necessary, but honestly, when you have a wood shop set up, it is really nice to be able to control the temperature, not just for your own comfort, but also for humidity levels for the wood for your projects. Over here is where I have my miter saw. I placed it here because I needed that extra length if I'm cutting down long boards. I also have wood storage behind here. Now, this is one of the first areas where I'm going to say I hate all of this. I went with one of these stands because I thought it would be useful if I have to go to a friend or family's house to help with a project. I got a stand I can use, and this way, you have adjustable stops on it. But I would have been much better off for strength of the miter station, but also for storage, if I would have built an actual miter station. Now, what I mean by strength is that these clamps don't hold very well for the height. You can adjust the height, which is nice, but they're not very stable. It's kind of easy to fall or change sizes as you're using them or throwing wood down. So they're not the most reliable at keeping a flat surface when you're cutting wood. So I'm a little torn on this. I don't really like it. I will be building a miter station at some point, so be sure you're subscribed so you can see that when it comes up. Also, for the wood storage, it's another thing I hate. This does work out okay. It's not the worst, but I honestly think this is a bad use of space, especially behind the miter saw. Because I'm reaching behind here, it is a little difficult to actually get boards out. So I think there's something much better I could do here. So this whole area needs a lot of work. Now back here in the space that I said I don't like using and I use for wood storage, I made this giant wood storage cart, which so far is working out well. It's working a lot better than what I had before, primarily because I have storage to put boards up the tall way, as well as different storage for parts like threaded rod, dowels, or other awkward things like this that's much easier to fit in a slot, and also for some shorter scraps like that. And basically my rule here is if I can't fit it on the shelf, if it's too small, then I just throw it in a bin to use for campfires. There is one other thing I want to point out about this corner, just because I feel like people might ask about it. This is actually the shelf I used to have behind my main workbench area by the French cleat wall. So if some people are longer time viewers, they might recognize this. The new workbenches work a lot better than this for storage. So I placed it over here for now, just to kind of pile up random stuff. I am planning on changing this. I'm thinking over here would be a good place for the joiner, maybe also the radial arm saw. I haven't decided yet, so again, be sure you're subscribed so you can see what I do here in the future. Now there isn't a whole lot to talk about or explain with this layout. I have my table saw, planer, and dust collector. I've rearranged this area of my workshop quite a bit, and the main reason behind that is because of the dust collector. It's very awkward with the space it takes up and where to put it. And I finally settled on this where my tools would kind of surround the dust collector, and I just had to be smart about where in-feed and out-feed was for different tools to avoid hitting that and to make sure it's also not in the way. Now, I suppose the last thing I could talk about here is my router table. Now, there's nothing really special about the location of this. It's just kind of thrown to the side of my workshop. It did work out nicely because of the design of the router table. Where the in-feed, out-feed is, it was able to wrap around the dust collector, kind of like how I mentioned before, wrapping my tools around the dust collector to hide that. I guess one thing I could point out, though, is building your own router table instead of buying one is worth it because it's very easy to build a simplistic one. So something to consider for your shop, because when you build your own router table, you can customize it however you want. You could even build it into another workbench because you can easily pop it out of the way and pop it up when you need it. That does it for the shop tour. If you stuck around until the end of this video, I just want to say thanks for watching. This is actually my 100th video, which is pretty exciting. I know a lot has changed in my workshop so far, so I thought it would be nice to capture a tour now because there's a lot of things I like and hate about the current layout, a lot I learned, and a lot more is going to change. So if you're not subscribed already, be sure, I'm going to say it once again, click that subscribe button, and if you haven't already, click that bell as well, because that way you get notified when my videos get uploaded. Once again, thanks for watching.